This is the Crush Crowdfunding Podcast, the #1 place for people who want to launch on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. My name is Nalin, and I invite you to join me for tips, hacks, and insights to get you launched and fully funded. Hey everyone, welcome to another session of the Crush Crowdfunding Podcast. I'm really excited to have you here today and to really talk to you about crowdfunding and how you can absolutely crush your goal on Kickstarter and absolutely crush your goal on Indiegogo. Yesterday, I was talking to a creator who had these questions about like what type of content to put out to the world when they're about to go into the crowdfunding campaign, which I think is a great question because a lot of people have this exact same question. A lot of people are like, okay, so I'm going to launch my crowdfunding campaign. I have 3 months of pre-launch, 6 months of pre-launch, like all these months of pre-launch where I'm building my community. I'm getting people to my email list and try to communicate with them daily on a platform like Facebook group or like Slack or Discord or a personal forum or something like that. Okay, so I have all that, but what's the stuff that I'm supposed to be talking about? What's the stuff I'm supposed to be telling these people? What's the stuff I'm supposed to say to these people, right? And so that's a great question. That's a great question because you need to make a lot of content. Right? You need to make a lot of content when it comes to all these pre-launch periods and time because you want people to know you as a creator. You want people to trust you as a creator and as a company. And you want people to like you enough to follow along on your journey and also end up backing what you end up launching, right? And so there's a lot of different things that you have to do. You have to make sure that you yourself as a creator, an entrepreneur, a designer, like whoever you are, you have to make sure that people trust you and people find that you're really invested in the whole product, in the development, in the creation of the product. So there's various different types of content to make this happen. One thing is just like content about you actually working on it, you talking to manufacturers and like behind the scenes of you doing sketches or behind the scenes of you getting on calls with people to work on this project or you doing the tinkering, holding the prototype, behind the scenes of filming the video or something like that, right? Whatever it is to make people know that this is for real and you are really invested in making this happen and you're really invested in kind of taking this and building it and making it a reality. Because there's so many people who can come to crowdfunding and kind of put together a half-baked idea and put it on crowdfunding. And it's just kind of disheartening because these products and these projects don't actually come to life, right? These products and projects don't actually come to fruition at the end of the day. And so people see that you're actually working on it. People see that you're doing all this stuff. Like they're gonna think, okay, well, this founder is super invested. So I'm going to follow along because this thing seems like it's going to actually come to life. And so there's lots of content you can do for this, right? You can do things like images. Images are great. A picture's worth 1,000 words, right? You can do images. It's great. You can do things like a podcast that follows along your creation journey as a founder and what happens next. You can do things like YouTube videos, a YouTube video diary of a founder who's trying to bring a product to life and just kind of meticulously going through the entire process. Like, okay, how do we find someone to prototype? How do we find someone to actually do the structural like rendering of it? How do we design for manufacturing? How do we make sure we have fulfillment correctly? How do we decide between different crowdfunding products? How do we budget for it? If you have like a design diary for this, like on YouTube, people are going to love the kind of like rags to riches type of story that you as a founder are going to be going through. And you're going to be learning, you're going to be seeing obstacles along the way, you're going to be kind of overcoming these obstacles. People eat that up, right? And the Hollywood makes billions of dollars off of that exact theme. And you can too by just making sure to document your journey. So we talked about images, we talked about like podcasting, we talked about doing a YouTube thing, blogging. Blogging is great to kind of get in depth about what you're doing too. writing out exactly what you're doing weekly, sometimes, daily if you want, but weekly, basically just keeping people in the know in whatever way you feel comfortable. So for example, what I do is I make sure to write every single week to make sure people know what's going on, what's happening in the crowdfunding world. People know what's going on and what's happening in my business and in my life. And so people know me and they know kind of the progress that's happening. I also start, doing the YouTube lives every day, Monday to Friday, just so that I'm able to kind of get in touch with people and get questions every day too. And I was doing a podcast, right? The weekly podcast. So people know kind of what I'm thinking about. People know what kind of projects I'm working on. People kind of know what the pulse of the crowdfunding industry is too. So those are kind of the ways that I choose to remain in touch with people and also kind of build that trust and build that credibility with people too by using those 3 different channels. You don't have to use all 3. You can just pick one and kind of run with it, whatever you're most comfortable with. I find that if you're comfortable with something, you end up continuing to do it and you end up making it a habit. So yeah, when it comes to content, just pick something. There's multiple types of things. So just pick something and start doing it. And if it doesn't feel good to you, try something else, start doing that. And you're going to find something that comes really naturally to you. The other day I was talking to a creator who really was like, okay, so people tell me I have to start a blog, right? Start a blog so I get long-term SEO. And so I'm able to get all this kind of long-term rewards for my website in the long run. But I hate writing. I don't like writing. I prefer being on camera. I prefer talking on video. And I'm like, okay, that's great. That's great, right? Because what you can do is if you're comfortable on video, you can record a video, you can extract the transcript of the audio of your video, word for word, using different programs, lots on the internet. I don't have to name any. You can just type in free transcription programs or transcription programs that you can pay by word or by minute or something. Yeah, you can pay by minute. But basically, you can just record that, extract your voice, put it in the transcripting machine, and then you can go through and edit just to make it sound like a blog post. You can do header 1, header 2, header 3, header 4, and just kind of go through the 4 to 5 different points you bring up in your video and make that a blog post and put it on your blog, right? That's great. It's easy. You don't really actually have to write. You just have to edit. And you already know the content because you already talked about it. So you can just kind of make the words pretty. So that's one way to do it, right? There's no right way. If you love writing, but you feel like you need to have a podcast, for example, you can write everything out in your blog and then you can read it out on your podcast. That's kind of what I think my sister does that. Yeah, my sister does that. She recently started her own entrepreneurial journey and she knows that she can write, but she didn't really have time to plan out a different podcast or anything. So what she did is she wrote these elaborate newsletters that get sent out every Wednesday to her readership. And what she does is she takes the newsletter and reads it with pretty much emotion and passion. She reads it on the podcast itself. And so, right, there's so many ways that you can redo and rejig what you do. And then from the podcast, what I personally do is I take stuff from the podcast too, and I put it as a video on YouTube because there's some people who just want to have YouTube in the background and want to be listening to something, right? And so I just have that with a screen of what the podcast cover image looks like, and then it's just a video of the music. I mean, not the music, I don't sing, video of the podcast going in the background. So there's so many different ways to repurpose what you do depending on what you're comfortable with. If you're not comfortable with all of them, that's fine. If you're comfortable with one, that's great. Just take it and run with it. All right. So as a creator, in that pre-launch phase, don't overthink this content creation thing. People just want, crowdfunding backers just want to know what is going on. Crowdfunding backers are a special breed, right? They're a special breed of people. They are people who are early adopters. They are people who want to make an impact on the actual product that comes out. They're the type of people who wants to see behind the scenes of that messy middle of a product, right? How a product actually comes together, how a product actually comes to life. These people want to see that. These people want to know exactly what you're doing because they want to kind of experience this entrepreneurial life and this founder life through you too. Some people really just want to do that, just follow along and just see what's up, right? Some people are just here just for the journey, for the ride, right? Not even just for the product, but for that ride of understanding the life of an entrepreneur, because they themselves might want to be an entrepreneur. They might be aspirational entrepreneurs. But the point is, these crowdfunding backers love seeing all the messy stuff. A lot of entrepreneurs I talk to, a lot of founders I talk to are scared. They're scared to just talk openly about all the crap they go through before they actually hit the launch button. They're scared to say, oh no, it's a week before we launched a crowdfunding campaign and our manufacturing company went out of business and it shut down and we have to find a new one. So they're afraid to say things like, oh no, we thought this was our final prototype, but it came back from the factory and it's crap, right? We can't use it. So people are scared to say that. People are scared to talk openly about what's happening in their lives and what's happening in their business. And so what I want to say to that is, don't be scared. This is the stuff that people want to learn about. This is stuff that people want to kind of see and understand. And this is the type of stuff that people want to follow along with when it comes specifically to crowdfunding, right? It's the audience behind crowdfunding that you really have to think about and get into their psyche. What do they want to see and what do they want to hear about? And all this, all the highs, the lows that you talk about is going to get people to know, and trust you. Sure, you can talk about all the good things forever, right? You can do that, but you're not going to come off as authentic. You're not going to come off as real because, stuff hits the fan every so often. Things don't go according to plan every so often. Things stop working every so often. And people know that. And if you keep presenting this facade that everything keeps working all the time, it's not the best, right? So that's one thing. Talk about the highs, talk about the lows. Don't forget that. Talk about the process. Whatever you're doing, talk about it. Make sure that you're able to kind of articulate how this that you're working on right now can push this project to life and how this kind of fits in with the bigger picture of the product that you're launching, so that they understand that whatever you're doing right now has a huge impact on the final product itself. Okay, so we talked about kind of stuff about the process, what you're doing, right? What's going on. A lot of times people just want to hear what other people have to say about the product too. So if you're doing things like beta testing, you're getting testimonials from people, you're sending out samples, you're getting people's feedback, grab all these quotes, grab all these really interesting quotes from people, grab people's surprise quotes, grab people's in awe quotes, grab all these quotes and just kind of put them together and kind of feed it to your audience every so often. People are herd animals. People are herd animals and people want to know that other people like this product too. So the more people like something, people have a fear of missing out. So they want to like it too, firstly. And since people are herd animals and people are just relationship minded, people just want to know what other people are thinking all the time. And people love seeing that other people are validating this product too. Because if other people validate the product, they themselves feel validated in their opinion of the product. So they kind of get a permission to, they kind of give themselves permission to like it if they see that other people like it too, right? And so if you have quotes, if you have testimonials, if you have testimonials from professionals, that would be great. If you're launching, for example, a product that will help you learn how to ski, or a product that will help you learn how to snowboard or something, and you get a professional skier or you get a professional snowboarder or someone who's really kind of influential in the outdoor snow sport space to vouch for you, get a testimony from them, get a quote from them, wow, people love that, right? And so make sure you're also having this information too, to kind of feed into people's herd mentality and people's relationship mentality. Another type of content that I really recommend you do too is it's press content, right? Press content. What does that mean? Press content means, as a founder, you have a story. You have a story that you're from some place, some country, some city, some town, and you're trying to launch this new idea that's going to change the way people experience XYZ. If that's the case, like pitch it to someone, pitch it to a local newspaper, pitch it to like a local blogger, pitch it to a local influencer, pitch it to someone, because someone out there wants to write about your story. And if they do, like, that's great. That's one more kind of social credibility point for you. And your fans love to see that. Your fans love to see that, wow, this person that I'm following, this person that's building this product that I really want to get, this person is legit because there's some other people writing about them. There's some other people giving them kind of a stamp of approval by writing articles about them, by talking about them. So that's kind of another thing to really, really kind of focus on too, if you want to start building that, following that credibility online as you're going to launch your own product, right? And so we talked about a few types of content here, and there's really no limits of what you can do. Some people have done things like film their beta testers using the product, or film beta testers trying out the product itself. Or some people have done things like sent prototypes to different influencers and had them try it out and have them film it and have them take a picture. And then they kind of release them behind the scenes just to see if like an influencer liked it or not, right? There's so many things that you can do. And, your creativity is going to be the thing that kind of skyrockets your content, right? Just make sure that when you're thinking about what type of content to put out, just think about who these crowdfunding backers are, right? Who these crowdfunding backers are, because they're going to be different for each category. They're going to be different for each product. And you want to make content that people want to see. You want to make content that people kind of resonate with, and you want to make content that people like. And so what happens when you start releasing content too is you start to get data back of what people start liking, what people start commenting on, what people start sharing, what people start responding positively to or responding negatively to. And so armed with that data, what you can do is make more content that is similar to that. So for example, what I'm seeing for my own content is that if there's some video content, for example, on Instagram, if there's video content, there's a lot of likes. If there's things that are multi-page scrolling where I'm actually putting down actionable tips for each different page, then people save it, people like it, people comment on it more than just a single image. And so with that said, I'm going to be making a lot more of that as we go. And with that said, just every audience is different. Every audience is different. There's no audience that's the same. So make sure you understand what works for your audience as you're creating this content, as you're looking to put out behind the scenes stuff, as you're looking to create different tweets, as you're looking at different hashtags. Just make sure to see what people resonate with and move down that same path, because that's what optimization is. That's what's going to get you down to the core of what your audience wants too. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Crush Crowdfunding podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or found it helpful in any way, be sure to leave a review so that other people will have an easier time finding this crowdfunding content. I hope that this podcast was helpful in your crowdfunding journey, and I can't wait for you to go out and crush it. Thanks for listening to the Crush Crowdfunding podcast at crushcrowdfunding.com. Tune in the same time next week for more ways to crush your launch.